Well, hey guys, in today's video, I'm gonna give you dermatologist tips for tattoo aftercare. How to take care of your skin after getting a tattoo. A tattoo is basically a wound. So the tips I'm gonna give you in today's video are essentially those that apply to wound healing. Major goals of tattoo aftercare are to avoid scabbing, to avoid infection, and to protect your healing tattoo from ultraviolet radiation, which can fade the tattoo. Now, there's a lot of variability from tattoo artist to tattoo artist in terms of what they apply to the tattoo after it has been placed, but generally speaking, at the time the tattoo is placed, a thin layer of petroleum, aka Vaseline jelly, is typically applied, and then the tattoo is covered with a bandage or some plastic wrap. That dressing is worn for several hours to absorb what's called serum, or the kind of fluid stuff that's gonna exude out of the wound, as well as the ink that's gonna be extruded from the wound. After those several hours, you wanna wash your hands very thoroughly and then remove the bandage. You then want to gently wash the tattoo in fresh running water and soap. After you've washed the tattoo, you then want to pat dry the tattoo with a clean, dry washcloth, and then apply a thin layer of petroleum, aka Vaseline. I have a big tub here. This is really inexpensive. It's only like $4. But this process of first washing your hands and then removing the bandage, washing the tattoo, patting the skin dry with a clean towel, and then applying a layer of Vaseline petroleum jelly. This is something that you're going to repeat twice a day, and these steps are really important. The aspect of washing your hands is to reduce the risk of infection. The tattooed skin is very vulnerable to infection, and that will ruin the tattoo and put you, in a bad place. And the process of gently washing the tattoo in water is essentially a gentle debridement to remove built-up blood or serum that crusts on top of your skin. You want to remove that. That's the purpose of the twice a day gentle washing. And the Vaseline is really important because Vaseline helps with wound healing. It provides a physical barrier, keeps the wound clean, prevents bacteria from getting in, and it also facilitates wound healing through the migration of little skin cells back to where they need to go. This is a key principle of wound healing. So as a dermatologist, I believe that petroleum is the best ingredient to put on a healing wound. It's inexpensive, it can prevent bacterial infection, and it helps with wound healing. But I know that amongst tattoo artists, there is some controversy. Some tattoo artists love using Vaseline, others argue that it might fade the ink. I personally don't understand how it could fade the ink, but I do hear a lot of arguments against Vaseline, stating that it prevents oxygen from getting into the tattoo and that it actually can increase the risk of infection. Some of those arguments may to a certain extent be true, but the benefits of Vaseline outweigh these potential risks. Wounds that are kept moist and protected heal better and with less risk of scarring. Vaseline or petroleum jelly has been shown to be one of the best ingredients to facilitate wound healing. The last thing you want is for your tattoo to get scabby and dry up. That will create a barrier to the new skin cells coming in and healing over the tissue. So Vaseline is really good. Yes, if you put Vaseline onto dirty skin, it can trap the bacteria onto the surface of the skin. That's why it's so important to first wash your hands and then make sure you're washing off the tattoo with fresh, clean water and a little bit of soap, rinsing it clean, patting the skin dry with a clean towel, and then applying the Vaseline. That really will help keep wound healing going in the right direction. An alternative though to Vaseline that I hear a lot of tattoo artists use is a diaper rash cream, and that certainly is an option. Diaper rash creams too protect the skin. They help with healing. A lot of them obviously have zinc oxide in them, which is anti-inflammatory and can help with healing. Unfortunately, you have to be careful though. A lot of diaper rash creams do have fragrance in them, and fragrance is not a good thing to put on a wound because you can develop a reaction to the fragrance that will mess up the healing of the wound, and in this case, your tattoo. So I don't recommend things like A&D ointment that have fragrance. Instead, if you want to use a diaper rash cream, I recommend Aquaphor 3-in-1 diaper rash cream. It is really good and doesn't have any added fragrance in it. So that's a good choice as well. I also know that a lot of tattoo artists sometimes will apply an antibiotic ointment, namely bacitracin. Bacitracin, frankly, is not the best topical antibiotic. A lot of bacteria are not even going to respond to bacitracin. And one of the problems with bacitracin is that people can develop a contact sensitivity to it. And the studies show that applying just plain Vaseline versus applying something like bacitracin to a healing wound, the rates of secondary infection complicating the wound are no different between the two groups. So it's better to go with Vaseline because it doesn't have that risk of contact dermatitis like bacitracin, and it doesn't expose you unnecessarily to antibiotics that aren't really that useful for this type of healing wound. If you follow these steps, keeping the wound clean and using petroleum, aka Vaseline, you will be fine. So that's basically how the aftercare should go. But point number 2, beyond that, is do not scratch or pick the tattoo. It's going to become very itchy. That's part of wound healing, to develop kind of an itchy stage. The last thing you want to do is scratch or pick. You don't want to, if you develop any scabs, you don't want to pick them off. Take advantage of the water that you're slushing all over the tattoo to kind of gently, again, debride that. But don't pick or scratch at the tattoo. Your fingernails harbor a lot of bacteria that you're then going to introduce into the tattoo, which is a healing wound, and put yourself at risk for an infection. Plus, the mechanical action of scratching creates a lot of inflammation in the skin that will delay and impair wound healing and give you a bad outcome. So do your very best to sit on your hands and not scratch or pick. So my tip for you when you're feeling itchy and you want to scratch the tattoo is to just take a basic moisturizer, which will help your tattoo anyway. In this case, I have here Vaseline Advanced Repair. This video is not sponsored by Vaseline. I just happen to have this. This is a good lotion to use, or I'll list some down below, some alternative moisturizers. Keep this in the refrigerator. Keep the moisturizer in the refrigerator. As soon as you have the sensation to pick or scratch, apply the chilled moisturizer to the tattoo. Just rub it in a gentle circular fashion. That will start to distract those itching nerves and calm the itch down without you physically, scratching and agitating the healing wound. Tip number 3 for having a good outcome of healing is to avoid wearing really tight clothing around the tattoo. The mechanical action of the clothing rubbing back and forth can cause a lot of irritation. It can trap sweat and bacteria there and just cause a lot of problems. So try and wear loose-fitting clothing. Tip number 4, you don't want to go swimming with a tattoo because pools, lakes, oceans, streams, what have you, they all have bacteria in them, even pools which are treated with chlorine, that can get into the wound and complicate things. I personally would just avoid swimming, at least for the first 2 weeks after getting a tattoo, just to be safe. Yes, there are some water-proof bandages that you can use and should be fine, but I personally just wouldn't risk it. Another reason though not to go swimming is that you don't want to expose the tattoo to ultraviolet radiation. UV radiation from the sunlight will fade the ink, delay wound healing, and can complicate things. The best way to keep your tattoo looking good is to make sure that you protect it from the sun long term. Even after this period of 4 to 6 weeks, we still want to protect it from the sun. You want to protect it from the sun by wearing sun protective clothing, not staying outside too long during peak exposure hours. If your tattoo is in a sun exposed area that you don't want to necessarily cover up with clothing, although I encourage you to do that, I recommend wearing a broad spectrum SPF at least 30. I would go with 50 or higher sunscreen applied really, make sure you get a good layer there. To avoid fading. I mean, whatever area is exposed to the sun, you should be protecting with sunscreen. But if you want your tattoo to stay looking good, that should be another motivation to put on the sunscreen and to not stay out too long. I mean, it should go without saying for me, never get in a tanning bed. The worst thing that you could do, it increases your risk of skin cancer. But when it comes to your tattoo, it'll ruin your tattoo. Stay out of the sun, stay out of the tanning bed, stay away from any kind of UV lamps. And protect the tattoo when you're outdoors with sun protective clothing and a broad spectrum sunscreen. And don't stay out too long. My final tip is this: if a problem arises within the tattoo, see a board certified dermatologist. There are a lot of things that can go wrong with tattoos in the early stages during the wound healing process and much later on in life after the fact. You can develop, obviously in the early stages, skin infections. You can develop allergy to the ink and have a bad rash as a result of that. Yeah, I'm not sure that people necessarily appreciate the fact that dermatologists not only treat tattoos as far as laser removal of a tattoo when somebody decides they don't want it anymore, but we also treat the complications of tattoos, and there are quite a few that can arise. So if you develop issues, especially pain, discomfort, horrible looking rash or something, see a board certified dermatologist. That would be your best bet. And you want to treat those things early and correctly rather than delaying them. I hope these tips were helpful to you guys. No, I don't have any tattoos myself, but you know, I do recognize that they have a lot of cultural significance and meaning. They're very important to people. So I hope these tips are helpful to any of you guys out there who are considering getting a tattoo. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, don't forget, sunscreen and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.